debtor. being recorded.
We're starting a little bit late, my fault. We will defer to our council meeting for an opening prayer, pledge of allegiance, etc. So let's get right down to it. This is one of the funnest things we've done in our lifetimes, I know. I got an email today, and it made me think of Aesop's fable, the miller, the son, and the donkey. For those of you that don't know the story, a miller and his son decided to go to market to sell their grumpy donkey. So they started walking, and then somebody mocked them because the donkey is a beast of burden. They said you should be using it. So the son got on, and then somebody saw the son riding and said, you know what, the old man should be riding. And then they swapped places. And then they arrived at town, and then girls criticized the miller for not, okay. Then somebody said, oh, you're hurting the donkey. Or no, not you're hurting the donkey. They criticized the dad for letting his son walk, so then they both got on it. And then an old soldier said, that's too heavy a load. They really ought to carry the donkey, so they did. And then, as they were crossing a bridge, the town people mocked them. The donkey got upset. It came loose, fell off the bridge, was swept away, and died. And they had no donkey to sell, and they tried to please everybody. And the moral of the story is to try to please everyone, you will please no one. And sometimes I feel like this issue is one of those where we try to please everybody. And
So which is the city council? No. Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
oh, there you go. We have an easy out. Can you take me to the next slide, Aaron? It is. Okay. Oh, it's just being slow. Okay, so I would like to real quickly, before we start, consider the questions that were formulated. And the important thing about questions is good questions help you get to better answers. Jonas Salk, the inventor of the polio vaccine, said, find the right questions. You don't invent the answers, you reveal the answers. So you got to find the right questions. So we did this little exercise. I asked Brittany to come up with 20 questions, and then we added a couple, and then she added more, and I added more. So in reviewing them, I would like to, you have a copy of the questions on your desk. It's in there. You have a sheet there that says it. I would ask you to let's quickly go through them, and if you see ones that you think are important, just mark it with an A, or you think it's not super important but it is relevant, then put a B, and if it's interesting, all the questions should at least be interesting, just put a C. And then what we can do at the end of the meeting is collate your pieces of paper, and we'll take them. I'll based on voting categorize them A, B, and C, and then I'll send you out an email saying, okay, here are the A's, here are the B's, here are the C's, here's how they were voted, and then we can ask one of the council members to just try and answer them. And then at a future date, we can have a discussion about the answers, because I don't think we're going to resolve everything tonight. So I expect that we'll have additional meetings and work sessions about it. But let's just kind of review them real quickly. Yes?
So let me just clarify that, Mayor. So you want us to put A, B, and C.
Or C.
Or C. What if we don't want to vote?
What if you think it's a stupid question?
Well, no, I'm not saying it's a stupid question, but what if we think it's not an A, B, or C?
Yeah, then
just leave it blank?
Just leave it blank.
Okay.
And that there may be some that they're just not necessarily relevant, right? They're interesting, not relevant to this issue. So just, yeah, leave them blank. And we can do that, but it starts really high level. What is the purpose of the Highland City Council? How does our purpose as a council guide what we should do with open space? Do we see the current open space situations as a problem? If yes, what's the problem? If it is a problem, the city council, if it is it a problem the city council should solve? That's really 3 questions, but I'll let it stand. How do you balance competing interests? That's a really good question, I think. How do we balance individual interests versus community interests? Well, this is one where maybe they could even be combined. Is there any real harm to other residents with property is sold, or is it perceived harm? Why would we want to sell any property? Good question. It would be easier just to say no, right? How would selling property benefit the city generally? How would selling property benefit neighborhoods? How would selling property impact individual homes? Why would we not sell property? What impact does not selling have on the neighbors, residents, and the city? Are we selling something more than just square footage for people? For example, are we selling a way of life, privacy, family time, etc.? Should we begin from a default position of yes or a default of no? Will the sale harm anyone in a real meaningful way? Why do people choose to live in open space neighborhoods? What is it they think they're getting? Will residents actually lose anything if open space in their neighborhood is sold? What are residents' expectations of living in open space? Just for comment, not necessarily all property that we would be putting up for sale are in open space areas. Most are, but not all. What do residents understand about open space? How can we help them better understand the problem at large? What do residents think their $20 open space fee is for? And will selling open space affect attitude towards this $20? What regrets could we have if we sell property? I'll do a really quick story for the people that are here. There was a piece of property that had a trail to nowhere on it over in Canterbury North. We could have sold it, we didn't. We had a maintenance agreement signed with the residents, and sometime in the next few weeks, we'll actually be starting a project that's going to use that space to fix a sewer problem that we're having in a neighborhood of a council member to be unnamed. And had we sold that, and we didn't know at the time that that problem would occur, that we would never, it would have been much more difficult to buy that property back from somebody if they'd fenced it and what have you. So sometimes we just don't know.
So they have a maintenance agreement, though?
They have a maintenance agreement.
Okay,
yeah.
so the city still owns it?
The city still owns it. They did do some landscaping that is going to be painful to lose. But
well, anytime you have an easement, that's always an issue.
Yeah, that is an issue. Yeah, it's just a risk, right? It's
I mean,
just
the CUP could come and dig up my whole backyard.
yes, because you have
They have an easement on me, yeah.
a big pipe under there with lots of water.
Yeah, about a third of the water goes to Salt Lake in that pipe.
Yes. Is what we are selling any value to anyone besides the property owner? For example, lowering maintenance costs for the city. In its current state, does the land benefit anyone other than the adjacent homeowner? What's the real harm of selling property? There are some redundancies here, and we'll take care of those when we consolidate it. Would it actually change home values of the home purchasing the property? Would it have any real tangible impact on other homeowners? What land do people recognize as belonging to the city? How is this land currently used to make it seem like it already belongs to the homeowner? What about fair? That's a fair. What about maintenance agreements? How much do we worry about precedents for future councils? What would be the unintended consequences of selling or not selling? What liability issues are we currently facing, and what would liability look like after the sale? What are we comfortable asking residents to do? For example, do we feel comfortable requiring maintenance agreements if some residents don't want to purchase? What are we legally allowed to ask them to do? Are we actually still creating issues between neighbors? What if we sold off all open space? Why now? or why not? Is that why now or why not?
Why now? Why now?
Why now? Yes, okay, why now? What promises were actually made regarding open space neighborhoods, and what is the urban legend? Water, water, water. Good question. I've heard comments that some requests are land grabs. If that's true, what is problematic about it? How to adjudicate the sale of property when it is adjacent to more than one other property? There are some cases where that's an issue. Okay, so quickly, before we started the 30-day period where we let people submit requests, we agreed on these general areas. Now, they weren't specific homeowners, but these areas as areas that we thought would be good to sell, that would be win-win. And we had a set of about 108 slides, or 116 slides from staff of all the property we own. The number there is the number of that slide, and we can just walk through them real quickly. This is on a cul-de-sac just north of SR 92 Mid-Highland. We said, yeah, we don't need that property. We would be comfortable selling it.
And Mayor, we decided there was no sewer or anything there, right?
No, there is a sewer in there.
So we need to keep an easement, is what it was.
But we would be comfortable if the landowner wanted to. Now, there's no guarantee that he would want to in this case, because look, he's already got fencing and landscaping there.
Which one is this that we're starting with? Are we starting from the very top?
This is the pre-approved.
Steve Rock
Okay.
home. This is the
These are
Steve
the
Rock.
ones, yeah,
Steve
so
Rock
this is
home.
from 10. There was slide 35, and we had this long section of what was trail easement, which became redundant when the Murdoch Canal Trail came in. But there are, along that area, there are some other entities that have easements, and you found one that mattered, that Aaron, or Kelly?
Yeah, Jordan Valley just has a district facility easement that's reserved for them and Provo River and just any facility that the county may need. And so
We
our
wouldn't-
suggestion was just to sell up to that, so we'd have to at least get a survey for where that easement is exactly and just keep that in our ownership is the best thing to do, probably.
And then, now, as we're looking at this, and I thought we discussed, there's the Workman property up to the north
Right.
that comes down, and there would possibly be a future trail that would come and connect to the Murdoch Trail.
We said we would sell all of this except for that north and south trail segment.
And then what about the other north
Then
and south?
My memory is
That one, yeah.
that one we
Correct.
decided to hold as well.
Correct.
Is that everybody's correct memory? Okay, so the portion along the Murdoch Canal we're selling, and then there's a little section below on the other side, right there, that we also
Consider,
discussed. So,
now, let me ask you, there's another connection, it looks like, coming from the north, if you go about 3/4, right there. Are we planning to keep that? Is there a trail that comes up?
there is an existing trail there, I believe.
Okay, so that would not be sellable there, right?
Well,
Isn't there a trail already there?
correct. I believe that's correct. So if there's an existing trail, it's not eligible for being sold.
And then wasn't there, at the very
At the top,
west end, there's some building, isn't there?
yes, now, I think, Kelly, is that trail rest station on the Jordan Valley?
It's inside that district facility
Okay,
easement. yeah.
So we'll just stay inside, we'll stay outside that when we sell, so we won't have that problem at all.
So Mayor, question, and do you want questions now, or do you want to go through everything?
Well, this is just what we already decided.
I just, we haven't had every property owner like along this come.
We haven't talked to any of the property owners.
But there's been one or two that have submitted
And
in
they've
this package.
submitted requests, so
Okay, and
we'll
that,
talk about
okay,
it then.
okay, that's why,
Yeah. So most of the requests we got were outside of what we had already approved, but there was, like, I think the one you're referring to is the one who happens to be on the southeast side there and wanted to buy the trail easement as well. Then we talked about this area, and determined that that triangle kind of in the middle where the 108 number is would be for sale, and then the bottom would be for sale. When we made the decision, it was we wanted it to be contiguous, starting on the right and going to on the west, east going to the west.
And we've definitely had requests for this property.
Yes, and we have expectations. And that triangle, the same thing. And I think both of those are almost like no-brainers.
Right.
They're
And we've
just-
got requests.
And we got requests for the other triangle on the,
Up there.
up there, and then over on the left.
Far left, right there.
Right there.
By the gravel pit.
The issue with that one, and this was something we discussed, I think we discussed when we were all together and also in our subcommittee, is there is the potential that a road would be developed that comes down off of that hill on the west side of Viewpoint and would function as a collector road to get people out off that hill. And that would be a benefit to that neighborhood. And we just don't know how much, if any, of the land in that little triangle there we would need if that road happens.
And this is a road that goes up to Alpine.
This would
right?
go up to Alpine, but it would, right now, the road inside Viewpoint dead ends up there, and there's property that will develop, and it would be nice to have a second exit for Viewpoint if there were ever any issues. But the MAG is doing a study right now looking at this, North County access roads.
And my understanding, when I went and visited here with Brittany, also, there already is kind of, and it might be kind of steep, but originally when Viewpoint went in, there was an emergency access road that and I don't know how they're going to be able to access, I guess they'd have to go into the pasture and come up, but if there was a major fire and they couldn't get out this one access road, it appears they could drive down, now they might get stuck in the gravel.
I've walked that before.
It's pretty
and
steep, isn't it?
On the top, it's not bad. As you come down, there's a couple of routes you can go. One of them is not one you would drive a normal car in, but there is a route that is steep, but you could use it in an emergency. But, we have to work with Kilgore, and that all has to get sorted out, what's going to happen to that. But it is a possibility, and I would hate to sell that, then have to come back and buy it again. So that's one we elected not to. That's why it didn't make the sell list to begin with, but we did have requests from 10 people, all 10 people there on that corner.
Brittany, I just wanted to hear, what was your view on that area since it's in your neighborhood?
Mayor, how are we going to do this? Are we going to,
So we're now going to go look at the new requests.
Okay.
And then
Okay.
we'll scroll through them. Aaron, if you could click on that link.
well, then I did have one question, thanks Kim, about that previous slide. So I believe that there were, the one house on the corner where we drove yesterday.
Yes?
So I do not think they submitted a formal request, at least it's not on our list. And I think the reason they did not submit a formal request is because when they saw this in the documents, they assumed that they were already
Which one?
included. The
Which-
wells on the corner there. Yeah, I just noticed when I was looking through it that I don't think they submitted a request, but they came to a meeting and said they wanted to purchase.
Well, for areas that we approve, we're not going to require a request. We may have conditions on them, like it has to be contiguous, right? Or conditions like that, but that would be.
I believe their understanding was it has to be contiguous, so you can do contiguous east to west, and then also west to east.
Well, that's their interpretation. The only one that matters is our interpretation, your interpretation, because this is a legislative matter, and it's entirely discretionary. There's no right for any resident to purchase any of this property.
So,
It's at our convenience.
And yeah, I understand that, and that's fine. I'm just saying that I know that they are expecting that, and so they didn't submit a request, so I
But
just
that
think.
doesn't, whether or not they submitted a request, if we approve an area to be sold, then people can just buy it. You don't have to.
Well, they have to come back still.
You would have to
to
reach
approve
out to
it.
them, and they would have to fill
I
out
mean,
whatever forms.
yeah, and I think they would say that it was a request separate to the condition of selling east to west.
Then we would evaluate, but then but even when we made that, we discussed this in the meeting when we approved everything, we did talk about contiguous.
We did, and it was in the minutes. I read that. I know what their understanding is, so I just would like to at least, give them an answer and a reason, even though they didn't submit a formal request. So maybe we can do that when we do the other ones.
Yes.
Okay, so as we talk about those other parcels, we'll go back and talk about this.
We can, or if you want to talk about that right now, this is as good a time as any to talk about that.
So, Brittany, when you went back, and I can't always say
And
have
we
the
put our
best.
life in your husband's hand.
Well, okay.
Yes.
Okay, so as we kind of look at this situation, and we're looking at the property specifically where the red dot's at along there, which goes over the hill there, my understanding was when we discussed this, it was supposed to come from, if you want to say to the east, going west, because we were trying not to keep a gap. Is that what our notes, is that what you read in the notes?
Yes.
Okay.
I think so. But I mean, and this is why I think that it's really hard to have this discussion at all without talking in some way about maintenance agreements and about encroachment. And I understand those are two separate issues that are like years away from being solved themselves. But I mean, because if you look at this particular piece of land here, there's a ton of room up there. There is zero chance that anybody ever uses it besides those homeowners. And so to me, I think it's just something that I understand the thing about contiguous, but this parcel to me doesn't make any sense for us to own. We
So
mow
that's-
back there and it throws up rocks and,
I know, so let's walk through this. This is probably a good one because this will come up in other subdivisions. The ones over in Windsor Meadows will have some of the similar conversations. So it appears along this edge we have, is it 8 or 7 homes? As we go through, my understanding is is it the homes coming from the east? Is it the first 4 have submitted a application to buy?
correct.
Okay, and then we have a gap where, how many homes would there be a gap before there's another
I
application?
believe there are 3.
3, so this is where I think as a council, we go, okay, we now come, there'd be a gap of 3 homes, and then there'd be 1 home on the end, and I agree that here's something, each parcel does have uniqueness about it. This is not the same. This goes off a hill, and like you said, it's not gonna be real accessible to others that are trying to get back in that area. But the question comes, let's walk through the scenario. We sell 4, we skip 3, we sell the other. Why would the other 3 ever come and buy? And is it an assumption, would the city ever need to get back there? And how does it work out? Does that make sense? Would those 3 ever really be enticed to buy if it's a gap like that?
Well, I think no, I don't think they want to buy. I think that, I think they have all encroached, I don't remember. I don't think they want to buy. I'm just looking at the whole thing and I'm just trying to figure out
So
what
would you-
makes sense.
Would your suggestion be that, I'm looking for, you live in this neighborhood, so you have a pretty good feel, and I understand you have, it's hard when it's also your neighbors. But let's assume we left these 3 where they didn't buy, would we enforce that they can't encroach? Meaning, is it, okay, you did not buy, because you didn't purchase, there's no encroachment that's allowed, or would we be okay entering into a maintenance agreement and letting them come out and maintain the similar properties, those who bought? I'm just saying, I'm not sure where the incentive would be to buy or
That's incentive is that they're going to have a larger lot size and their property value will increase.
I agree. I think, for me, I'm right with you. I think there would be an incentive. This area is not accessible really to anyone else other than
Yeah.
these homeowners. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
This has some unique characteristics to it.
And let me ask the staff too, how much maintenance do we do in that area? I mean, could we just go to the point where we don't do any maintenance if there are 3 homes? Because they could enter into
Sure.
maintenance agreements and then basically be incentivized to buy the property. I would think you'd want to surplus all those.
It says on my spreadsheet that I don't know where I got, that they mow biannually.
Well, biannually is every other year, right?
Well, it'd be
Or
twice, I think it's
that'd be
twice, twice
I'm
a
just reading
year.
what it says.
I think it's
Probably
twice a
means- The intent is
Every
semi-annual.
twice a year.
Semi-annually,
That's the
okay.
intent.
Yeah.
And we had residents that complained that when we did go back there and mow, that it was kicking up rocks.
I mean, so to me, the question is, so if we say that, yeah, those 4 could buy in the end, and then we have to stop, because the other 3 don't want to, and I know at some point there had been discussion of maybe having a policy that if you don't want to purchase, you can't have a maintenance agreement.
That's,
The current policy is, if
So-
maintenance agreements can only be done for property that we do not want to dispose of.
okay,
Okay, so then we sell the 4,
okay.
and it's beautiful, and then those next 3, we're like, you're all taken care of, you've encroached, and you've maintained it, and it's beautiful, but we're gonna take that out now,
Well,
so
they have
that
all-
the people on the end of you cannot purchase also.
Well, no, or what was just said, one option is let the 4 buy, but those 3, if they've encroached on city property, they have that option to buy where they can extend it. But if they don't purchase, they can't encroach on city property. Does that, I
Yeah,
think,
Right,
it makes
and I
sense,
agree
but
with
they
that,
already
yeah.
have, they already have, so we're gonna take it out?
we're going to have several that we're going to have to make some requests that have done some encroachments that will, not, that we'll have to make some, they're going to have to make some modifications to what they've encroached in city property. I'm just saying, we're looking at this, we have several, at one time I heard 220 properties in Highland have encroached. Not all of them will be sellable, and some of those we need to come back and say they can't be up on city property or their improvement. And it's going to be hard on the council and those who are here. So the question, I think, comes in on this one, because this will help us guide us in the ones in the future. Sell the 4, the 3 don't have to buy, and then the understanding is from past policies, if they don't buy, they cannot enter into a maintenance agreement, and then the other one could purchase, and so that, or we're the city council, we can make changes if we see that there'd be a reasonable change there. I mean, one discussion is that they have to put one thing I talked with Mayor Mann about was, if there's property that does not sell, they have to enter into a maintenance agreement. The opposite, they have to enter, but they have to put a sign on the back of the property, which is, we would charge a fee that they put, that states exactly right where the property line's at. This is city property and being maintained by such and such family. And the problem is if that property sells and they're underneath the maintenance agreement, Nathan, and how does that work? If they sell, does that maintenance agreement stay with the property, or is it with the property owner? I was just kind of curious. Is it property owner based or is it property based?
Well,
We have to look at one real quick, hold on.
Okay. Because I'm just saying, because it could expire upon, that's one way to look at it. I'm just saying there's many different ways to come and try to come to a solution. I'm open if there's other suggestions on how to look at a solution here.
So, let me just say something. So these 3 homes that right now don't want to buy, in your conversation with those 3 homes, I assume you've talked to them, is that right, Brittany? Yes. Were they adamant we will never buy, or is it kind of like, the city's talked about this for 15 years, we just don't know if it's going to happen, we don't want to get our expectations up. And so if we surplus this property and it was available, there are 5 neighbors buy it, why wouldn't they be incentivized to buy it?
So I think that one of them is just kind of amused by the situation at this point and doesn't see a reason to buy it because they already have some grass. I think another one encroached at some point with a swing set that they had cemented in, that then they had to move. And so they're, I think, a little bit just frustrated with that history. And then I think the third one is an elderly couple who has no interest in buying it because they don't want to spend the money and it doesn't, in their eyes, add value to
But
them.
they have encroached, that elderly couple.
Yes, they have.
So it did add value somehow,
Yeah, because they've encroached, it's true.
right?
It's
So
true.
the value that they wanted, they've got, they just haven't paid for it.
Maintenance agreements run with the land.
So someone sells it, stays there, and it's a 10-year agreement, is that right?
And these don't have maintenance agreements. Kelly checked on that for me.
I
They
mean,
do
you
not.
know, for me, what the past city council made a decision, if they didn't purchase, they then cannot encroach on it. To me, I have a hard time incentivizing someone that, and it's hard, there's two philosophies. I guess I gotta say, we don't want to have to force, no one's forced to buy any property from the city. But they shouldn't benefit by maybe encroaching upon the city property too. I mean, they're also getting a benefit because they encroached. And if we sell this, those three, if I was them, it is true, it does add value. So if you're getting ready to sell, you might want to come in because it should add some value to your property. But if they're not planning to sell, they don't see, there's no reason to
But
expend that money.
Kurt, I just don't know why. I mean, if we surplus all 7, and 5 of the people buy it, the other 3 homes that don't, and they're encroached, I think we need to enforce our ordinance that you don't encroach.
And so I agree with
So
that.
you don't have to buy that property, but we're not going to maintain it, although we haven't been doing a lot of maintenance
Correct.
on it. But you can't encroach, and so you need to move back. So I don't know, that, to me, that's an incentive to all of it be the same.
If that's what we're suggesting, is that we'll sell 4, skip 3, and then sell the other, but they can't.
They
go
can't
off
encroach. Yeah,
encroachment.
you
I'm
can buy
okay-
it or not,
I'm
but
okay
you
with
can't
that
encroach
policy.
on it. Yeah.
So,
For this area.
For this area,
because-
'cause
I mean, this is a pretty
it's-
logical
Yeah,
thing.
This one here.
Because it's,
Yeah.
nobody else
No one
sees
else,
it.
there is going to be some others, like when we get to Windsor Meadow, also if you do have that, there's an area that then makes us have to maintain, and so we have a gap. One of the reasons when we were going through this many years back was our city employees go back here to help maintain, and if there is gaps, like they don't know which property owner owns or doesn't own, so it becomes a maintenance concern. By them not buying it, I also think as a council, we need to say, this specific property, we're not going in the back to maintain anymore. Is that-
Right.
We're selling it, we're not making any assumptions, we're going to maintain it all back there at all. And so if we get calls that there's weeds, we need to be where we're not maintaining the weeds.
But that could be your policy if you have a group and you've got just one. Say, one way you alleviate the checkerboarding is just say, we're not going to maintain it anymore.
Yeah, the
It's
weeds,
we surplused it.
so I have a question on
Yeah.
that. So we're saying we're not going to maintain it anymore. So if they are maintaining it though, and have grassed it, are we going to come in and say, you can't maintain it either?
Well, we're going to say you shouldn't encroach on.
you cannot encroach, and if they are, they're not going to be able to take water, because once these sell, I would assume that we will look at, if this lot, let's assume, is a 1/4 acre, and what their purchase brings it to 1/3, they start paying the water rate. Is this, am I kind of understand? Then they are going to increase their irrigation. If someone is encroached, and now they go back, let's say they only own a 1/4 acre, but they're irrigating a 1/3, we're stating, you don't have the right to irrigate the 1/3, you've got to remove off it, and we're going to enforce it. If they wanted to keep their property, you know, that they maybe encroach, they can come and purchase. We've given that option.
I guess I have a problem telling somebody who's grassed over something and try to beautify it, sorry, you can't afford to buy it. Maybe that's one of the reasons why. So you're going to have to tear all that out that you've beautified. I am fine with the maintaining it because there's such more value for somebody owning the property versus having a maintenance agreement. You can put a structure on there if you maintain it. You could put a playground equipment. You can add value to your house. You can show that your lot size is bigger.
Okay, maybe I'm misunderstanding. This, they don't own the property. This is where they didn't purchase it.
Well, yeah, so I'm just saying that versus somebody who purchases that property versus the person, the 3 houses that didn't purchase it, there is value of not purchasing versus purchasing, even though it's all grassed over.
So let's assume these
So you're
3,
saying if they've encroached, you're not going to make them take the grass away?
I wouldn't. I mean, it's
So
very
we're gonna
hard for
con-
me to say, this is beautiful what you've done, you've tried to make it look nice.
Okay, well,
You
let's-
don't want to buy it, so tear out everything, all the grass. I have a hard time telling people to tear out grass and something that they've made nice.
Kim, do you think there are levels of encroachment?
Yes, if you have a structure on there, if you put curbing in there, a fence on there, a pool perhaps, you never know.
So if you, let's.
Because those
go
are
to a
things that
different
come with
example.
ownership.
but they're taking ownership of the property the city has. That's what I'm saying. By
So
doing,
let's not just look at this little one, let's look at.
I guess I'm just
Hills,
looking
where
at
there's
ownership versus what a
7,000
maintenance
square
agreement
feet
is.
of grass
Uh-huh.
that they're watering at our expense. The city is paying for that.
And that will
and-
change when we put metering in.
Well, but it's not going to change now, so you're saying they should continue to water with our water, our meaning the whole city's water, to pay for them for that, and enjoy that property, even though they don't have a maintenance agreement and they haven't purchased it.
See, that's why I would say a maintenance agreement. It's just very hard for me to tell somebody to tear out and let it be weeds again.
Well, and
Well,
I
that's their
understand,
choice though, right? I don't think you tear out the grass.
Sometimes it's not their choice, though.
You-
I mean, sometimes people can't afford it.
true.
Pretty expensive to do some landscaping.
But,
And
It was
that's
their choice
another
to
thing,
do
that
it.
it is expensive, and so,
but Kim,
that's one of
they
the
made a
things.
decision when they put the landscaping in. That, my hardest thing,
Mm-hmm.
it was their action that caused the grass to go past the boundary line. You know, I mean, this isn't something the city came and planted and said, hey, keep watering and maintaining. They have planted past their boundary line. They've encroached upon, I mean, I keep looking and going, okay, I have a pasture, and let's assume one of my neighbors came and said, hey, I'm going to turn that little area into a garden, and I don't catch it. And so for a couple of years it goes by, and they've been watering the garden, putting it, well, at some time you could say, well, hold on, I've got to reclaim back my property. I mean, I'm I could be honest, Kim, I'm sensitive, though, that there are going to be some, we even could say, hey, we've tried to make it a reasonable price to buy. There's going to be some that it puts a burden upon. I mean, we have some that have fixed incomes. I think, you know, when I was up there, Brittany, you mentioned there might be some in this area that had a fixed income, that this would be a burden, and that might be one of the reasons they're not buying.
Yeah,
$1,700 for the smaller one.
It's still,
and these are hard questions, and I understand where you're coming from, Kim, but I'd like to give an example. In my life, I'm restoring my grandparents' home in Pleasant Grove, and I had some neighbors in the back who wanted to buy a piece of the property so they could put their trailer in there. So I said, no, I really don't want to sell because I want to keep the boundaries contiguous and different things. So they went ahead and moved the fence and has been using my property. Now, I haven't said a lot about it because it's until recently I've started restoring it, but I wrote them a nice letter and I've communicated and I said, look, I'm having it surveyed, I'm putting up a fence, this is my property. So to me, it's kind of the same thing when people are encroaching and they have the opportunity to either do something else. I just think we have to be careful with that. And I don't want them to tear out the grass and stuff too, but we've got encroachments where people have gone way into the conservation area in Beacon Hills, and it's just inappropriate. If they're going to use it as their private property, you need to pay for it, I think, and especially at these prices, which are pretty cheap. Yeah.
In the case of grass, you wouldn't ask them to tear it out, you'd just say you can't water it.
Yeah,
But in that case, they're putting in the grass actually created weeds in the part that wasn't grass.
Yeah.
Because now you've got water going where there wasn't sprinkling before.
how about a solution here? I'm going to, because this might help with, if there's financial concerns or things, how about if we give them, we open it, they don't have to move anything if this is this open for like a year. Should we give them a little bit so they can plan towards financially to be able to buy it if they want? You know, instead of saying, hey, on July 1st of 2021, you've got to be off, we give them saying, this is what our policy, and it goes into effect here. Give them a little bit of a, if you say, a warning, so they can prepare either financially or move that line, and so the burden's not instant, but we let them kind of, it helps ease them into it.
yeah.
Can I make a
yeah.
suggestion?
Sure.
And I think this is kind of where the mayor was headed, and then I totally derailed him, which I feel really bad about. I'm sorry. Would it be possible to go through this? Okay, so we know then that those first 3 homeowners would like to purchase. It seems as if... Four. Seems as if we're all okay with that. So is it possible to yes and no, the ones that we can?
Yeah.
And then can we put the other ones aside, not indefinitely, not till next year, just aside and then say, you know, we'll have another work session in October where we'll discuss Beacon Hills and Viewpoint, so that their price isn't getting raised, but so that we can have the conversations about encroachment and maintenance agreements, because they need to happen, but there's no way we can do that tonight. So can we just yes, no, and if it's a unanimous one, move on?
I love that, Brittany, because, I mean, how many requests did we get here?
Well-
And I'll be honest, I could not go visit every single one of these houses and talk to every single one of these people. And I have a hard time making a yes or no decision on,
Well, in this meeting, we're just discussion, so we'll have an
Okay.
agenda item. But we can agree what we're going to do.
Don't we have agenda item?
Yeah, we
today?
have an agenda. I just don't want that to be an hour-and-a-half item as well.
Right, but if we can make some decisions, I agree with Brittany, I think we could say yes on these 4 for sure, but the
Yep.
question is about the one over in the corner.
Sure.
Yeah,
There are two in the corner.
so I got to admit, what Kurt said sounded okay to me, that we say, if, you- in this area specifically, right? Okay, you have a year to decide whether or not you want to buy this. If you don't buy it and you've encroached, you have to either quit watering, or if there's stuff that's been done that changed the landscaping, you might, that is negative. But you could defer that to another time period, I think.
And would that be, we know there's encroachment because we've had reports of encroachment? Is that how we'll monitor the situation?
Well, we can see encroachment,
Not up there, you can't.
but we can,
But you've seen it.
I mean, you'll have to go, but I'm saying,
We
you'll
can
have
look
to go,
at-
are we gonna go actively looking for encroachment, or are we going to wait until it's reported? Because I think those are two very different things.
well, we have actually actively looked for areas where people have encroached. Staff has done that. So they know where the encroachers are.
So, and I mean, I can agree with that too. I think it's
To
a,
surplus it all,
Well, we can surplus it all.
and give them some time.
then do you say though that the two on the end have to wait and purchase when they find
They
out?
keep it
That's-
continuous.
So we kind
yeah.
of surplus it all already. Now we're just saying, on, the policy on this one is,
You can.
and I think the easy answer right now is, the first 4 come by, it's contiguous. We're holding off on that contiguous discussion until we can figure out
But-
a encroachment policy that works. I have to
But
think-
why wouldn't you let the last 2 by? Because we've decided, I think in our discussion, that we're not going to maintain the 3 in
And I-
between.
And I think that's, so we have 8 homes, so let's go through. First
Yeah.
4, no concern. You're going to have a gap of either 2 or 3 homes that don't buy and one that does. So we surplus the whole. The policy would be that we give a notice to those 3 that have not, that don't purchase, that we are no longer maintaining back there. They have 1 year to decide to purchase the ground, or if they've encroached, they need to remove, turn off the landscaping or something, and we will not be maintaining. Is that what we?
And then allow the last 2 to buy as well.
Yeah, and they have one, really kind of a year. Now, they can come in here, let's say they have till July 1 of 2022 to buy. If not, we expect anything that's in the encroachment to be either no further
Stop
sprinklers.
watering.
Yeah, stop watering. And because we're not going to be able to get back there to access, we can't really enter into mainstream. We're just saying we're no longer maintaining, and the city owns that property, but we don't need access because we're not needing to maintain. Does that seem reasonable?
I think it's pretty reasonable. I just think it'd be good to surplus the whole area.
Yeah. Mr. Ball?
I like the idea of giving them a year. However, after the year's over, instead of just saying you can no longer maintain this property, you can't use it, you can't encroach upon it, if there's any structures, they must be removed, why not give a contiguous neighbor the opportunity to buy that property and create like an L-shaped lot, for example? They could use it for RV storage, they could use it for a lot of different things.
I hear that doesn't really work on any of these that I can see.
No, but
But that is an option
the
if somebody
council in
else
the
buys
past,
it.
that was when, if one did not purchase, they allowed either the neighbor on either the side to.
And that gives them plenty of time.
Yep.
If they say we can't afford it, gives them more than a year to make a decision based upon their financial situation, or whether they just don't want to maintain it, or
That's a fair, that's a,
First 4.
I think that's fair.
So I think we should just make a decision if we want to surplus the entire thing and let them all purchase it, or if we just want to do the first 4 and then come back to the other later, once we've looked through other things, so we can have a better idea of what our general policy is going to be. I can be talked into either one, I suppose.
So, have we discussed this enough so we can just, when we come to it in the council agenda, we can just vote on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and as long as we're in viewpoint, I think most people would agree that we need to hold off on the ones where there's a possibility of a road.
Yep.
Yeah,
And then there are 3 other ones in viewpoint that have been requested. So one of them is, it's just right in the middle of the neighborhood.
Do you have the triangle, are you talking the little triangle piece?
No, well, the triangle piece, I think,
We're already good with that.
Yeah,
Was
and-
already
and
there.
we've gotten all the neighbors that have the opportunity to buy, they've all agreed.
Yep.
And we
Yes.
just gotta make sure they're all in agreement on how their property lines are gonna go there.
yeah,
so.
no, that one is.
that's one that we can surplus there, without any
Yes.
problem.
And let staff just make sure that they're,
They can surplus up to the trail, there's a trail that runs back.
That 5 feet or something.
Yeah.
Then there are 3 other ones separate from, so there's the triangle, and then there are that we said was okay. There are the 10 properties where we said we need to wait and see what's gonna happen with that road. And then there is one that's just right in the middle of the neighborhood that I don't see how you can
It's
sell.
over by the park.
It's by the basketball court, kind of.
Right there.
Yeah, and it faces that back, so I don't know how you would possibly sell that one.
if I was voting, that would be an easy no.
That would be an easy no. And then there's this other one in the corner, the top right corner. And I believe this was a late request, but I think he would like, they've already encroached. He's new though. He's already encroached, would like to go up to the trail and then
Beyond it, right?
beyond.
And
I feel like that is a no because we can't have a city trail in your backyard.
Correct. And then there's the other one, which I will now disclose that I have preferential favor because I saw a BYU basketball court on it. And so I'll
It's true.
disclose that conflict of interest because they had a BYU basketball, but I thought they should be able to buy.
Yeah, and then there's, this
And-
one
and
at
they
the
did-
end.
By the way, they did come in late today and say they wanted the land all the way to where their fence goes in. So they have a request that we can show you when we get there.
Perfect. So, and I'm good with that one because we already let the neighbors along that road purchase.
Yes, but
Yeah, we did
are
that
you
a
good
couple years
with the bigger ask?
I'm good with it as long as it doesn't go past, like, there's a point where I think there's like kind of a row of trees, and then on the one side of that, I think is used as a neighborhood park quite a bit, so I wouldn't let them purchase into there, but, yeah, I would have to see I haven't seen their proposal, so.
We'll get to it.
Okay.
Okay, so did we beat that horse to death?
No, I think we've made some good
Yeah,
decisions.
well, we made the decision.
Yeah, and this sets some precedent, yeah.
Okay. All right, Aaron, can you go click on that link? Ignore it, yes. And that gets us to this sheet right here.
Do we want to do the easy ones or what?
Okay. Now, I thought this folder was, if you had the link, you could access it.
Yeah, it is. This is the one you emailed out to us, right?
Correct.
And I think Kelly also emailed us a link to this one, right? Is this the same list?
No, she mailed the Dropbox links, I mailed a link to this sheet.
You did a Google Doc, okay.
I had a little trouble getting the Google to
Yes,
open up
and
for
I
me.
gave you access.
Yeah.
I'm mad at myself because it's,
Can I, while she's looking back, can I make a suggestion just about implementation, which is something we're going to have to think about? So I know that in the past, the policy has been that we pay, as a city, half the surveying costs and the resident pays the other half. I would suggest that we give a surveyor a list of all the properties we decide to surplus, divide it by the number of homes, and let the homeowners pay for that surveying cost as it advantaging them, not
I
us.
just need it so anybody with the link can
You
get to
know,
it.
Brittany, I agree with that. I think the survey should be borne by those who are purchasing because they're getting a benefit. And I believe the pricing is very favorable. So
And then
Well,
you
and I
can-
think having the same surveyor would be very beneficial
And it will make it
throughout the
easier
city.
for
Yeah,
staff.
very cost efficient.
And then, because you're doing a group, and you divide by the number of properties, then I think.
It reduces the
everybody
cost.
wins. Okay,
And I normally avoid math.
Okay, so what we can do here is if you'll start, Aaron, and click on the Perry and Susan Christensen link, that gives us the Utah County parcel. The other link gives you the request that they made.
This is fine.
Let's look at the request thing. And this will cover those first three. And if you scroll down, you'll see they have determined between the three of them how they propose dividing the property.
Was this up in a conservation easement area? Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
I do need to mention, this was my mistake. So on those drainages, they are drainages that are recognized by Army Corps, but Army Corps doesn't have jurisdiction over them because they are not perennial. And so they would only regulate them if they're perennial streams, but because this is just seasonal every once in a while and is sometimes empty during the year, they don't, basically it's the city's decision for what you protect when it comes to it being a drainage, but just to be aware that it is a major drainage. So that's something I just have to point out.
And Rob, did you look that up? And you, because we were looking at a map earlier, and that's what it was, right? Rob was looking
On the
into it.
inventory,
Yeah.
like the wetlands inventory.
Yes.
Okay.
So this area is, while it's a conservation easement right now, is it a conservation easement?
It's
Okay.
not. So that Highland City parcel, like the large one,
Yeah.
isn't even in a subdivision plat. It's just city-owned, at least it's not. No, I checked, it's not in a subdivision plat. It's just that piece of what was going to be a trail that is included in the subdivision plat, and that's not conservation.
Okay.
So it's not designated as conservation, it is just part of a natural drainage.
So we could, to be consistent, because we have done it further south, we could sell off the trail easements, or they're not even easement, the property that is designated was planned to be a trail.
But probably will never happen,
And it
unfortunately.
will never happen, because they already sold stuff further south.
Further south in Beacon Hills and area.
So we would need, to me, would be one where you would go south to north, and as long as people bought on the way up, if you just click on that, see how that goes. As long as the homeowners bought up to that, because we still have access from that north, see where that road
Yes.
tees off there? You just, if you didn't sell one of those, it would be hard. That's kind of a hill.
So let me ask, I guess I misunderstood. I thought, and I hope I say the name right, is Braden Niche. I thought he was trying to.
He's trying to buy the area inside that
Okay,
area.
that's what I thought. Okay.
But we could say, look, the stuff that's for sale is simply the trail
Yeah.
corridor. And you could say, yeah, I'll go ahead and dispose of that. And then we just say, you could say it just has to be purchased contiguously from south to north.
So this is kind of similar to the discussion we had over in Viewpoint, where we'd surplus it behind 8 homes, or here you got, what, 4 or 5, but it just has to be contiguous when they buy it.
Yes.
We can't, this one, I think we got to be careful not leaving a gap. What do you think?
I would think the gap would be not good in this area. If you go to the Utah County parcel map and turn on
Ariel?
aerial, and then you can zoom in, you can see one of those homeowners has already encroached, built a retaining wall. And I can't figure out what that
That's a trampoline, probably.
that blue
Yeah,
thing is.
that's probably a trampoline.
Might be
Or
your,
it's Lehigh's water tank. Because they're everywhere.
just doesn't have a BYU logo on it, so.
Yeah.
It
just
doesn't
don't-
get
I
preferential
don't
treatment.
recognize what it is.
It is blue, at least it's not red.
So, I mean, we've asked this question about conservation and things. So even in that square that the niches are interested in, that isn't conservation either?
But it
That's
does,
right there?
yes, it's not a conservation easement per se. But
It's
I
just
would,
part of a drainage and it's city-owned.
it's city-owned, and if there are trees there, I think you need to protect the trees. Because that helps keep the soil together.
Sure.
Um,
But my understanding is that they didn't want to take the trees out.
Yeah, but that's, who knows what the
That's this
future-
property owner. You could have another
Right.
property owner in the future. So what we're just talking about is this trail.
And you could punt on the rest of it like like Brittany suggested, if there's something difficult, do the easy stuff.
I'm okay with the trail corridor.
So you're saying that you're okay with Perry and Susan Christensen?
Just the trail corridor was, I think, what we decided. Their request was combined with the 3 homeowners there, and they divided up the area
Yes.
in there. But if we exclude that, to me, that's an easy one, because it's consistent to what we've done south of there. Because we did sell, down here, remember, we did sell behind those other homes.
Which one is can you tell me which one is the niche home and which one is the?
Well, the niche home's a vacant property.
That's the property they
Well,
own.
okay, they own the adjacent home.
Yes.
Yeah, that's theirs too.
And in the case of that home, and maybe this other one, this other property here, I think we already sold the trail easement.
We did.
We just didn't continue it.
That used to be the Fraser Bullock property.
Yes. It's a nice area up there. It's beautiful.
So just explain to me so I understand better. So the little peninsula, or whatever you want to call it, that sits in there, we want to keep that because we don't want them to take the trees out? Is that what I'm hearing? And it's a drainage area?
Yes, and then the other thing you need to look at, and this is, I don't know if you want to consider it tonight, but if we start carving out parts of what we own, when do you stop? Because every time you draw, let's say you drew a line right there or further east, now you have another opportunity for another homeowner to say, well, I want to draw that line straight over and up, right? Or, so when does it, it's just a game of, I'm cutting corners, and at some point, where do you stop?
I think what you're mentioning, this could start setting precedents, going, why did you do it for this one homeowner when we have other things where a trail corridor, we know we're not going to be building in, building it, and so that's something, it's been done in the past, so we're staying consistent. So this is where we come back and go, it's been done, so we're doing it again, where if we do this for this one property owner here, we might have problems where everyone keeps coming back to this as the example to do it elsewhere.
But we do nothing for maintenance there, right?
I don't think so.
Those are bike trails down along here.
And those aren't, yeah, they're just dirt trails.
Yeah, those are all, that's how they get up to the Hog Hollow area. They go up by our pond, and then they also will park down by the parking lot, down the Beacon Hills parking lot, and ride their bikes up.
So for me, this is just a little bit more complicated question, and it could very well be that council figures out something and says, yeah, we can sell it, but I personally would prefer it to have been done thoughtfully with some understanding of why we're doing it here and why we wouldn't do it elsewhere. Because I just think when we own it, the default should be no, there has to be something in it for us.
I'm good with just doing the trail corridor and then waiting, because I think that trail corridor is easy, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
too.
I think I would say let's do that, and then,
Address
can-
this later.
Yeah.
yeah, and by later, I don't mean I don't know what I mean, not super later.
So later, but not super
Well,
later.
like, not like later, not like later in that we actually don't want to decide this, so we're gonna say later, so we don't have to do it.
So we
Like,
didn't-
later in terms of we'll actually do it at some point sooner rather
Are you
than
saying by
later.
the end of this year, are you saying by the end of September? When are you thinking that later is?
I plead the 5th.
Well, I don't think
because
we
we were-
can, yeah.
Because we
Go
were
ahead.
talking about, then those that are a little bit harder, then going subdivision by subdivision. Is
Exactly.
it doing that later and relooking at it? But for now, this is a definite yes on the trail corridor. Take that, relook at it when we do the division by division on the harder ones.
Yes.
All right, now let's go to that was the first three on that
Now,
list.
Scott, I want you to know the next one, I did show some preferential treatment. The name was Scott Smith, and so I kind of thought, is
Yeah,
this you?
It is not me.
Okay. I was willing to,
I read that and I thought, that is not me. Okay.
All right, next. So those, it's the first three there that are, and then you've got Scott Smith is the next. So click on that Timberline. If you click on Scott Smith's name, you'll see the requests.
Now, from what I remember, I can't remember if this gentleman, is that it, the one right there, within the yellow?
Is that Scott Smith?
There's a couple, 'cause I think a couple have come in, and I think several in this one area right here in Timberline. If you look, I think there's 2 or 3 here.
Yes.
Yeah, there's the
Giles.
Giles.
So Giles is the only one that isn't grassed over.
Correct.
And that's because they actually went to the city after their neighbors were grassing over and decided to do things correctly and ask if they could do a maintenance agreement, and the city said no. And so now theirs looks like orphan property, and they actually got a notice from the fire department.
Yes, I
Couple
talked
years
to the
back.
fire department. They shouldn't have given them the notice. They
Yeah.
should have come to us.
Saying it's a fire hazard.
Well,
But that was a mistake on the fire
Our
department's part.
department gave them a notice. It was a hazard.
That's terrible.
But that was a mistake.
Have it encroached.
Yeah, because they said, we're not going to encroach like our neighbors, we want to do it the right way, so let's do a maintenance agreement. Then the city said no, and so now they're the orphan property with the fire hazard.
I talked to the fire chief today, and that was a mistake.
It's a really good story, though.
Now, the other thing we need to be sensitive as we look at all these encroachments, some individuals have come and purchased homes, maybe not really understanding in
And I
the
think
residents
that's
of
the case with this one.
Yeah, I
They
mean,
purchased it and
so as we
presumed
see
that
some of these names, might not have been the one that originally encroached, that they've purchased the home or things in that nature, so.
So is this official conservation area again?
No, this is our property.
So why wouldn't we let
This is
those?
the same as before, where it's just open space on the plat, but part of a drainage.
So
This
why
is
wouldn't we
hog
let
hollow.
people buy that? I mean, we're letting them maintain it. If they don't maintain it, they get in trouble. Why wouldn't we just let them buy it if they want to buy it?
So the question I think also comes, as I've been in this area, is there are a couple trails up in here. If the individuals have not encroached, would people use that as open space for mountain biking? I found out, if you go, there's a mountain bike app, and they actually put this as one of the areas you jump down into to go up to Hog Hollow, is just because they can park at the park.
Well, let them buy up to 5 foot next to it or something like a trail.
Yeah, and that's
I
what
think
they've
Kurt's
asked for.
question is if they hadn't encroached and people felt like
That
they
was a-
could, it was public property, would they ride their bikes on that property?
Well, I mean, they couldn't ride their bikes on that property because
Right.
it was just the sagebrush, it wasn't a trail.
Right, but mountain bikers make their own trails sometimes.
I mean, you can see where a little mountain bike trail is just right there at the bottom. I guess the question is, would they try to jump up on the top if it was does not look like it? But, Scott, I can see the reasoning to surplus, we don't want to get too close to trees. There are quite a few mountain
Well,
bikers in
yeah,
that
have
area.
a surplus up, but have a space there. But it seems they're maintaining it, they're getting in trouble if they don't maintain it, and they want to buy it, let them buy it. I'm not sure the advantage of keeping it in the city, because we can't maintain it.
This just goes back to the question, then what we talked about is, if Brady buys it, then what about the other neighbors that have encroached? do we need to require all of them and all or nothing, or just allow?
Well, so that, on this one's a triangle piece, and so it might be, if we're going to surplus this little triangle, we probably need to let all neighbors be aware so they have the opportunity. Because right now, just because you have one come in, you know, you've got other neighbors, since it's a triangle, maybe this is one we let them beware if we're favorable in selling it, to see if they could work it out as neighbors and how the boundary would be.
Or maybe this is one we can decide right now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, maybe, because I think the neighbors, because I see there's 5 homes that might be able to purchase here. Now, the one we're looking at, maybe it's not going to be such a hard, but as you go in a little bit further, that starts to become, hey, where's the property line supposed to go? Is it straight back? Is that one in the corner supposed to have a little bit of
The
property?
Giles have already sorted that out with their
So,
neighbors.
and I would say we should come back to this one, because I think it also opens up that whole question of, if it looks like your property, but the city owns it, I mean, then what? Because some of this looks like I would never go on that property because it seems as if the homeowner owns it, and they don't. So I just think we should come back to this one
So
soon.
where's the,
So one of the things, if you remember when Todd brought this back up in the fall, was the water issue.
Oh.
These are all big parcels in here, and you're adding a lot of square footage that is added to turf. And the demand on the water system, that was a lot of the reasoning behind not including these in staff's recommendation for,
This wasn't on the staff list.
No,
Right.
but all but
I
one
mean,
of them is already watering.
I know, you're talking,
Pay that, yeah.
But-
They should be
10,000.
paying for water.
again, the only way you're going to remedy that is to meter.
but metering, you still have to deliver water to it.
Right.
When the system is a delivery issue, and it originally wasn't, we were looking at the lot and not back there. I mean, you're adding another basically 10,500 square feet.
Would it ever make sense to charge for a maintenance agreement?
What do you mean?
Like, you're maintaining a half an acre of grass extra without extra, you're not paying for extra water. So if you would like to use that land as if it was yours, then you should water it with your water that you are purchasing from us.
So the question comes in, what about here? You add a 1/4 acre. Are we going to make them bring a 1/4 acre share into the city of irrigatable water? So I mean, because that's a question of the water. You're adding a 1/4 acre of actual grass here.
So that's
And can we deliver it?
11,326 square feet.
I guess everyone's already grassed over there, except for one area, so are they having water issues?
Oh, yeah, this is one of our worst areas.
This is expensive. We've come to the, 1118th North pump, and we're pumping up into this area. So this is our most expensive irrigatable water, because we're pumping up to it. It's not flowing, we're pumping.
I think
Right?
if it's an area that big, you can't water for free in a drought.
Well, I mean, it's watering the cost of the water itself, but we also have the delivery issue because people are using way too much. I mean, that's,
Yeah, but is it only this area that they're using way too much? Isn't it throughout the whole city?
well, a city, but up here, it's a real big issue up here. And when in its operation in the pond, being able to get the water through the pipes, and it's not just this year in a drought, it's every year.
So help me, Nathan, what have they done in the past when the city sells, let's say, a 1/4 acre? There's not been requests for them to bring any more water shares. I mean, this is one thing we could discuss as a council, going, if you're buying X percentage of the property, do they need to bring more water shares? What would be their,
Like
did
here?
they provide the water across all of the property that?
Typically, in a subdivision, you bring it as a gross, not a net.
But
If
this
this wasn't in the subdivision.
was in the subdivision, is what they're
plat,
saying.
It's part of the subdivision.
Was this part of the subdivision
But-
plat?
It's part
Can
of Beacon
Kelly
Hill.
just say it wasn't? It
This
wasn't,
was.
said it
That was
wasn't
the
in
one we were
plat.
looking at that was way north over by the
Okay,
Blue
but
Bison
it's
piece.
contiguous with this, right?
This is all part of the Beacon Hills.
Well, that's a different plat.
I wish we could have a
This
city
is Plat
council
I,
meeting
the
at the
other one was
park.
Plat
We can all sit there, look at it, and decide together.
This is part of the plat.
Well, it's hard to make these decisions when we're having a bad water year, too.
Yeah, it is. But we have to
Well, it's-
anticipate that
The-
at some time.
It's a fair point. It doesn't matter whether we have the water or don't have the water. If our delivery system, if the pipe's this big and you need a pipe that big, it doesn't matter if there's enough water behind it.
If you remember, we had Tavis do a presentation, last year or the one before, where we talked about the impact of adding this amount of turf and selling all this and what it would do to our
Well,
PI system.
Here's an interesting thing. This plat, the property we're selling is not even part of the plat of the property that it came in on. It came in on the other subdivision, but yet we're selling property in another plat.
Well, it's all part of
The
Beacon Hills.
the
So
whole
it's just different
master
phase.
plan. Okay.
Yeah, it's just different phase.
So what are your options here? So we don't want to sell this because we don't want them to use more water. But if they don't water the area, we have the fire department come in and tell them it's a fire hazard. And if these other neighbors stop watering that area, it becomes a fire hazard. So, I mean, it's kind of a catch-22, I think, a little bit.
Well, then we-
That was, again, a mistake. The fire department didn't know it was our
Well,
problem.
I know it's a mistake, but if they don't water that area, then it becomes dry weeds, which increases the risk of fire, and you've got all that wooded area that's going to be really dry too. So
Yes.
I'm sitting in a neighbor's house there, I could see their concerns. But I see the city's concern too, the water issue. To me, it's kind of a catch-22, whatever that means.
Then you provide the appropriate breaks and go from there. I mean, like the golf course does over here off 74. I mean, there's development happening all over the country where you have this interface,
What do you mean by appropriate breaks? You're going to have a corridor where it
fire
breaks?
breaks, yeah. So you mow adjacent to the property lines essentially.
So is this one we defer to
It's up to you guys.
I'm asking council.
Yes, defer.
All right,
But by defer, I would recommend we have another workshop or two,
Correct.
at least by this fall.
Correct.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
okay, so then, we kind of see if these all fall into that same category. Yeah, that's the same area.
Yeah.
So we can,
This is same.
There's Jason Hawkins there too.
and that's,
Now Kyle Poles.
You
Kyle
got-
Poll is different.
Yeah.
So let's look at Kyle's. And we've got 10 minutes, council, before this thing that we could do easily in an hour, Kim, just reminder, or Brittany, sorry.
No, that was Kim, that wasn't me.
That-
My vote still is to just go through these and yet, yes, no them with not a lot of discussion right now. That's still my vote.
Okay. So on this one, does the council,
That might add to the open space fill of that area as people are in that area. I mean, it's up on the road, it's not really behind the homes.
But this is where they pile all the junk, right?
correct.
And so he wants to eliminate the junk.
Yes.
Weren't there two separate things?
I thought there was two different.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's both those houses, but they wanted the land behind their home and then also to the side.
I didn't see any requests from the neighboring. There's no requests that I'm aware of from the neighbor to the north.
Is this one Kyle's?
This is Kyle's.
Yeah.
Can we do it?
I
Should we do
do
a
want to
defer?
show y'all the plat really quick, just because when I first went through this, I didn't notice that there is a 50-foot wide easement that's along the back of their lots.
Is that for trail or what's that for? Is there a pipe?
It says it's a water easement, just like a water transmission line easement behind there.
And there is a water line there.
And cutting through there as well?
I mean, I can't tell you existing,
Okay,
I
so
honestly don't know,
let's
but
punt on this then. I would recommend punting on this. Kim, you,
do a defer and then punt this one to when we look at each subdivision individually?
Yes.
Okay.
And then that's Giles as well.
Oh, this is this
Alpo,
one.
what the next
Okay.
one is Canterbury North.
Is this the area we've already said yes on?
Yes, and this is,
That parcel.
well, this is one, this is the new one, that wasn't on there. You can zoom out, well, right there, that's fine. So we own this little piece of property here, and I don't, Kelly, we haven't determined that we have any purpose in it, right?
No easements, nothing?
No, and the plat, it's just Highland City open space. I mean, it's a long, this is all that's like county stuff, so we don't own anything around it.
It's just an
This is
isolated.
Jordan Valley that regulates this.
And when I originally looked at this, I said yes.
Yeah, and I have a yes for me as well.
I agree.
Me
I
too.
said yes.
Okay, so next.
Go through the ones where
Oh,
it's-
this is
This is the
that one.
Shamberry Fields, is that right?
Yeah, and that's the one where we have a significant water main there.
Yes.
And council previously said no,
No.
but we would do maintenance agreements.
And it's all grassed and looks
Yeah,
very
It's all
nice.
grass.
It should be, at least I talked to Jeff about this, and the only thing we should allow in the maintenance agreements there is just grass.
And isn't that going to be a future trail?
Correct. That's one of the missing
To connect
segments.
to-
That's one
Beacon
of the
Hills Plat
missing
E.
segments of the trail, because the trail south is there.
Yes.
Under the,
And they're building up to the north, so it
they're
will
going to
connect
put the
there.
trail there.
Yeah. So
All
I
of
would
those?
just say those are all no, maintenance agreements, right? Which is what their current.
That's what they're currently doing.
Yes.
Yes.
So that's all the Grenoble ones.
And then we had,
And then let's look at the loose, oh no, that's just on the west side, on
Yeah.
the east side. Yep, so that's,
This one's different.
Zach. No, we're on Zach.
So
where's this at?
this is Lausanne. It's just west of what we were just looking at.
Can you,
Uh,
oh, this is right where, this could be
134.
Perry Homes to the north, right?
Yeah, this is going to
Okay.
be their, like, part of the detention basin
And-
that they're putting cobble in.
and we previously sold the trail easements running east and west behind all
So
those
this-
homes.
Yes,
I had-
but then we still own this parcel right here.
But are they looking to buy the parcel on the side or just behind?
No, they already bought the property behind,
Okay.
all the,
So I think they're looking to purchase a little bit right here.
Is there a reason why the city owns that one parcel that's next to it?
I think it's a drainage.
Well, this whole thing is
Can
for
you-
drainage, and we also,
Is this the one that has the fence? Can you put a,
Oh, no, this
okay.
is different. That's different. Is there any reason?
this might be the trail corridor.
That was a trail easement for a trail we're not going to build, or that was a trail corridor that we're not going to build. Does it serve another purpose on the drainage side?
to my understanding, that, like, Perry Development's plans for that is just considering this parcel right here. So I don't know if there is a purpose to this parcel, unless you think.
But we can
different.
check the plans for the basin to see if it's included or not.
Okay, so I would say that's a yes, depending on what staff comes back with.
I'll agree with that.
Okay. That's a yes question mark. All right.
Okay.
Next one.
Bull River Road?
Oh, this is,
This is the
This is
trail
the
that we had to
fence.
close off that's over by the Mendenhall property on the
It's
backside.
on the other, it's east of that section.
Yeah.
This is one where a homeowner bought it, they had already landscaped it, and he's trying to make it right.
So that fence lines up like right about here, and he's just wanting to make it purchasing 5 feet from the track.
I was okay with this.
I think this is a yes.
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 Sunrise,
This is the one with the wall. That's the irrigation.
Oh.
yeah. And my understanding from staff is it's a no recommendation from staff.
Mhm.
To the right.
Just along a detention basin.
And in his requests, he did make mention that he felt like city, when they were maintaining it, were knocking off those caps. And I asked staff to look into that and see what's going on there. Because if we're doing it, then we should fix it, right?
Yeah.
Figure out how to not do it.
Next one, or do you want to talk
So
about?
what,
That would,
so we were no
so
on
staff
that?
is a no. Is there any council member that? No. Okay, Skidmore. Athena.
Said it was needed for drainage?
um, Remember that we sold on the west side of that?
Oh, okay, yeah. And this, there has a little drainage thing right there. And when Todd was mentioning, he says you can't sell on the east side because the drainage, we sold the west side a couple of years back. That's why it was a no.
Oh, this is on the other side of the hill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you remember, Scott, we were worried about the drainage because it comes down off that hill.
Right.
That might be one where a maintenance agreement might be useful, so I would, rather than say no, I'd say defer. If it was me.
Mayor, can we take a 2-minute break before the meeting starts?
Yes, so let's stop right there.
Okay.
We almost got 2 pages done out of 5. That's
So what's
pretty
our
good.
plan to come handle these
So
others?
it's an agenda item.
Oh, okay, that's right.
We'll get through the first part of it really easy, and then,
And finish up on the agenda item.
Yeah.
Okay.
and then I'm going to allow council to take a short break. We've been here for an hour and a half, and we're going to have another 4 hours probably. We made progress. Okay, so short break, we're going to start a few minutes late. Thank you for coming. Jeff, thanks for coming. That is our UTA trustee from